murder is not absolutely wrong.
Thank you. That's consistent from where he's coming from. Because there is no God, murder is not absolutely wrong. You're right.
No, I'm talking from the Talmud, the Toratical laws. Like, these are, like, Jewish things we hold important. Are you saying that Jews don't believe in God, or... Because I would disagree with you.
Obviously, the majority of Jews believe in God. But I've got a lot of Reformed Jewish friends who do not believe in God. Obviously, there are many...
There's plenty of examples of people who've shown, like, mathematical proofs, amongst other things, that morality is not tied strictly to God. It is possible to form a basis of moral absolutes without God.
No. It's impossible for a moral absolute to exist if there is no mind prior to the human mind. How do you mathematically prove a moral absolute?
You just assign a mathematical rule that effectively measures your impact on someone else instead of threshold.
Yeah.
So murder is taking away someone's entire existence, and so it's never okay for you to murder.
Baloney. I've got a wife and 3 boys. If I want his money in order to benefit my wife and 3 boys, and in order to get his money, I need to murder him. That is my choice, and I'm not wrong.
That's a straw man, because no, you don't have to murder him to get his money. But B, you're entirely taking away his existence for a marginal benefit to the existence of you and 3 others. So that's obviously not moral. And I don't need God to tell me that.
If he's an accidental collection of atoms, then there's nothing wrong with squashing his life.
That's not what atheists say at all.
I'm not saying what atheists said. That's not the question you asked. You asked me, if there is no God, is it possible for there to be a moral absolute? And I'm asking you, I obviously said no. Now, you said you're wrong, Cliff. Fine. Please explain to me how you get a moral absolute without God.
You're the one preaching. Explain to me why it isn't.
It's very simple.
I'm not preaching. I'm asking the questions, not you.
Oh, I can ask questions, can't I?
No, it's not fair for you to respond to my question with another question.
Oh, it's not fair.
That's a very, very well-established debate style that undermines the possibility of debate.
Oh, don't worry. I will answer your question. I already have begun to answer your question. But I totally disagree with you. It's totally legitimate for you to ask me questions. It's totally legitimate for me to ask you questions. Come on, guys. We're in a university here. We think, right? We think, hopefully?
Right, but it's not so much that you're asking me a question, more that you're asking me a question to avoid answering mine.
Oh, no. I don't avoid. I've been answering. I answered all day. All right. You ever hear the Nuremberg Trials?
Yes.
1945 to 1949, right? The Nazi lawyers were brilliant. The Nazi lawyers stood up and said, these Nazi soldiers gassed Jews into Dachau and Auschwitz because their commanding officer ordered them to, because their culture taught them to. For you allies to come in here and to condemn these Nazi soldiers for gassing Jews is so intolerant, it's so arrogant, it's so culturally biased, it should be thrown out of court. And sir, the Nuremberg Trials shut down. Until the American counsel, Robert Jackson, stood up and said, there is a law above the law. And according to the law above the law, gassing Jews in Dachau and Auschwitz is absolutely evil. The Nuremberg Trials got back into gear, and those Nazi soldiers were convicted.
Okay.
Robert Jackson's plea for a law above the law is a statement. Ultimately, the law does not depend upon culture, people in power, or my own opinion. Because if it does, it's totally relative.
Right.
And we have no basis for saying, as Americans, the Nazis were wrong.
Okay.
The only way there can be a law above the law is if there is some mind to create and define that law.
I disagree.
Okay, how do you have a moral law without a mind?
Go ahead.
I just want to, I'm Jewish, and my rabbi will tell me that there are not moral absolutes. So,
You bet.
my rabbi tells me that.
Well,
so.
you bet. And lots of Protestant ministers say that morality is relative because they don't believe there's a supernatural God, and many of them are my friends. I'm totally aware. But at least they're consistent intellectually, as opposed to you.
No, my
At
rabbi
least they're
believes in
saying,
God.
there is no
believe in
supernatural God, and therefore morality is relative. Fine, that's intellectually consistent.
I'm just saying it's possible to form a system of morals without a supernatural being.
Well, of course, a system of morals, of course.
Well,
But
no, I
you've
mean,
got to
like,
acknowledge that system of morals is relative,
This is fun.
right?
I mean, outside of the big ones, like it is possible to say murder is wrong without needing God to tell you it is.
Well, of course I can say, buddy, to murder him is wrong.
So wait,
But if I look him
hold
in the
on.
face and say,
If
murder
my-
is absolutely wrong, who defines the absolute?
It's not absolutely
Culture,
wrong, though.
individual, the people in power? Well, then it's relative. But if there is a God who creates him with innate value, and he creates this intangible value called justice, then it's possible that for him to murder him is absolutely, not relatively, but absolutely wrong. You cannot have a moral absolute without there being some type of God. Meaning by that, some type of mind prior to the human mind that defines right and wrong.
Murder
that
isn't
simple.
absolutely wrong, though.
Say it a little louder.
Murder is not absolutely wrong.
Thank you. That's consistent from where he's coming from. Because there is no God, murder is not absolutely wrong. You're right.
No, I'm talking from the Talmud, the Torahtical laws. Like, these are, like, Jewish things we hold important. Are you saying that Jews don't believe in God, or... Because I would disagree with you.
Obviously, the majority of Jews believe in God. But I've got a lot of Reformed Jewish friends who do not believe in God. Obviously, there are many Jews who are atheists. And that's fine. That's their choice.
Are you calling me an atheist?
No, I'm not calling you anything.
Because I'm not.
You asked me, what do Jews believe? And I'm telling you, Jews believe there is a God. Many do. And many other Jews, many of my friends who are Reformed Jews, believe there's no God. I don't know what you believe. What do you believe?
I believe there's a God, but I don't believe in moral absolute.
Okay, why don't you believe in moral absolutes?
Because it's situational, you know? Like,
Okay.
like a Christian friend of mine would say that abortion is absolutely wrong no matter what, but if it's threatening the life of the mother, it's not wrong.
Good.
That's not a moral absolute. Or if someone is trying to hurt another Jew, I'm allowed to do all I can, including murder that person, to stop them from doing it.
Oh, all right, then we got to start clarifying a little bit. If I go up to this guy, take out a knife and stab him to death, why? Because I think that guys with yellow wristbands should be murdered. That's murder. But if he and I walk into McDonald's and this guy is spraying machine gun bullets into children's bodies, and if I hit the guy high and he hits him low and we break his neck in the process and kill him, sir, that is not murder. That is killing motivated by a drive to preserve the innocent from being slaughtered. When Dietrich Bonhoeffer tried to assassinate Adolf Hitler, that was not murder. That was due to his drive to protect the innocent Jewish people from being slaughtered. He tried to stop Hitler physically. That's killing. There is an ethical difference. And you're right, it gets gray. I agree with you. But I can promise you, sir, child abuse, slaughtering innocent children is never good. The rape of a woman is never good. Those are examples of moral absolutes. The Holocaust is never good. It's absolutely evil. Racism, be it apartheid, be it racism in the United States, as shown in slavery, is never, ever good. Those are moral absolutes.
I agree.
Okay, well, guess what? The only way there can be a moral absolute is if there is some type of God to create and define those moral absolutes. Otherwise, it's all relative. Does that make no sense?
Well, I don't know, sure, but I have a lot of atheist friends, and some of them are more moral than I am,
Sure.
so...
Sure, all of my atheist friends are wonderful people. They're all idealists and altruists. All of my atheist friends are wonderful people. I don't have one rotten atheist friend, okay? But they're in a real bind intellectually when they hold to these morals so adamantly, but deny God's existence. Because one of the greatest pieces of evidence that God exists are moral absolutes that every single one of us holds to. See, it's impossible to live out moral relativism. Think about it. It is impossible to consistently live out moral relativism. Why? Think about whatever it is you believe about racism, the Holocaust, abortion, homosexuality. All right? Think about your position. Now, whatever your position is, and I obviously don't know, but whatever it is, if you're a moral relativist, you have to agree that the opposite of what you believe is just as valid. See, it's impossible to live out moral relativism. Think about it. It is impossible to consistently live out moral relativism. Why? Think about whatever it is you believe about racism, the Holocaust, abortion, homosexuality. All right? Think about your position. Now, whatever your position is, and I obviously don't know, but whatever it is, if you're a moral relativist, you have to agree that the opposite of what you believe is just as valid. You can't live that way. You cannot live that way. You cannot live as if gay bashing is good. You cannot live as if apartheid is good. Instead, you attach absolute moral significance, don't you? So you can't live out moral relativism. It's impossible.
You can understand it within the context of cultural particularity, where you don't have to you don't necessarily have to agree with the opposite, but you can understand that there is the possibility of a different system of thought that would support a particular position that you may not agree with or you may not
Sure.
agree with.
Not only that, but I, as a follower of Christ, have no option but to love and respect a human being who kidnaps, rapes little boys, and murders them and buries them. Because I, as a follower of Christ, understand that all human beings have innate value and dignity, and Christ commands me to love all people, including my enemies. So you're right. I will look into the face of the kidnapper, the guy who rapes, and say, I love you and respect you as a human being, but I'm convinced that what you did was absolutely wrong. But guess what? I view myself the same way. I affirm my value as a human being because I'm created in the image of God, but I deplore my wrongdoing. I have done absolute evil. That is why I need Jesus Christ. That's why I need his forgiveness. He bled and died on a cross to forgive me, to reconcile me to God, to give me eternal life. Why would I look in the face of a gift horse like that and say no thanks?
Am I a bad person because I don't believe in Jesus?
No, you're not a bad person because you don't believe in Jesus. You're a bad person like I'm a bad person because we both have rebelled against God. We both have sinned. I'm a dirty, rotten sinner, and so are you. What does that mean? It means instead of loving people, we've been selfish. Instead of caring for people, we've been apathetic. Instead of honoring God, we've dishonored God. Instead of respecting people, we've been disrespectful. So I'm not this great person that I wish you would believe that I am. I am in desperate need of God's help. That's what Jesus Christ offers me. Don't you find yourself in the same boat?
My God offers that too, but he's not Jesus.
Okay, good. So who's the God you believe in?
I believe it's the same as you, but we don't involve the Trinity. God is one. It says
Okay.
that in the Old Testament, so it goes against our central beliefs to believe that there's more than one God.
Right, but Jesus repeated the Shema of Israel, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. Right, so Jesus
Then
was
he
a strict monotheist.
But then he was accepting that he wasn't God by saying that.
No, he went on and claimed that he was this one God revealing himself in finite human form. So now, do you think the evidence is that a Jewish man named Jesus is reliable?
I don't believe that.
Okay,
why?
Why do you find it so difficult to trust Jesus Christ?
Because no modern historian recorded it except the New Testament. How am I supposed to believe that? Some of the apostles weren't even Jews. Like, I don't trust them if they're not Jewish and they're writing about the Messiah. Like,
You got to be kidding me. The first reason you told me you can't believe in Jesus is because no modern historian writes about him?
yeah.
Well, you know, sir, if we did have a modern historian writing about Jesus, then we really would have a problem. Because that historian would not be an eyewitness.
No, I mean, like, during that time, a historian during that time, the only one they have account of is Josephus Flavius.
Yeah.
And they proved 300 years after they found that in the history of Josephus Flavius that it was inserted by Christians.
No, they did
It wasn't
not.
actually written by, wasn't written by Josephus Flavius.
Antiquities 18.3.3, Josephus clearly writes about Jesus as being an historical person. Now, the question is, when he writes about the resurrection of Christ, is that in addition to the text or not? It might be. But to argue that Flavius Josephus never wrote about Jesus Christ as an historical person is intellectually dishonest. That's
But not
true.
that he was the Christ. He mentioned a man named Jesus,
Yeah.
but he did not say he was the Christ. So, but he also was Jewish, so he stuck to his values and accepted there was only one God, not Jesus.
Yeah, well, I worship a Jew. Jesus was a Jew. So faith in
Honestly-
Jesus is not anti-Semitic.
It's like a cop-out to say he'll come again, because nowhere in the Old Testament said that the Messiah would come twice.
Where
It
does
said
the Old
it would
Testament
come
say he's
once.
only going to come once? Where does the Old Testament say Messiah will only come once?
That's what my Talmud tells me. It's
No,
not
it's
in
not.
your. Well, you don't believe in the Talmud because you're not Jewish, so you wouldn't know it's in our Bible.
The Torah does not teach that the Messiah is only going to come once. It doesn't answer the question, how many times is Messiah going to come? You can't make an argument from silence. It's intellectually dishonest. The
You can
Torah
believe what
never
you
says
want.
Messiah is only coming once. The Torah never says he's coming twice, or 3 times, or 4 times. It does not answer the question. You cannot make an argument from silence.
Then why are you making the argument he'll come twice if you don't have any proof?
Well, no, because that's what he claimed. Jesus claimed he was going to come a second time. Now, the obvious question is, why should I trust Jesus to give me any type of truth?
He's a human being. I wouldn't trust him.
You don't trust people?
Not usually, no.
You check your roommates. Do you check your roommates' pockets to make sure there is no gun or knife in them before you fall asleep at night?
No.
Well, then you trust.
I don't trust them to keep secrets, though.
Do you bring your chemistry kit to the breakfast table, the lunch table, the dinner table to make sure there's no arsenic in your food?
No.
So you trust cooks, don't you?
It's blind trust, though. It's something I don't think about.
Really? You think Ohio State University hires crooks for cooks?
I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that.
Come on, bud, think with me. You have faith. All of us have faith. All of us trust. The question is, whoever or whatever you trust, is it reliable and trustworthy or not? You know very well, if you get sick, you're not going to go out and have a street person operate on you. You're going to get the most highly trained surgeon who understands the order and design of the human body to operate on you.
If I can afford it.
Yeah.
If I can afford it, but most people can't.
You don't blindly trust anybody. You demand evidence of trustworthiness, and then you trust. All right, the reason that I trust Jesus Christ is because he lived the type of life that in my best moments, I've tried to live, and I have failed miserably. What about the whole teaching that without the shedding of blood, there's no atonement for sin? All the Jewish people taking the lambs and slitting their throats so the blood would flow. I mean, I hope you don't think that that was just some barbaric ritual.
No, of course not.
Good. So the wages of sin is death. So Christ claims to be the Lamb of God, laying down his life to make atonement for sin. And you as a good Jew understand the importance of atonement.
Okay.
So Christ claims to be laying down his life, shedding his blood, taking the on as a penal substitute, the just penalty for my wrongdoing.